Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast, the show that brings you weekly advice and news at the beginning of every weekend. Introducing first your hosts, Mac, Mark, and Landon. We are back for the first time in 2019. Happy New Year to everybody. Live on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or however you may be listening. We want to welcome you into the show. It's episode 39 of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Mac, joined by Mark and Landon, of course, my co-host, for the biggest week, or second biggest week of football, conference championship week. Boys, it's been a minute since we've been together on the pod, so how you been? What have you been up to?
I have been pretty excellent. I had an extended holiday back in my hometown, and I'm back to work now. I'm back in Guelph, but really, I kind of haven't been working that much, so all I've been doing is gaming on my new Nintendo Switch, playing Zelda every minute. If you want something to waste your time now that football's over or there's just a few games left, get Zelda and you'll just spend hours upon hours just mindlessly roaming Hyrule. But besides that, things are good, man. It's or guys, Marky. Hello, Marky.
Hello. I'm listening.
Drew is in Montreal this weekend, so I am on my own. She is there for a vets conference, and I'm just killing it back in Guelph on my own.
Love it.
What about you, Mark? How's school treating you? How's being back at work? Are you ready to be back?
It's okay. It was a pretty smooth transition back in from the holiday, and it doesn't feel too stressful. It's just like it's a new year, and I'm calm. I'm kind of trying to do a bit more with my free time. Been playing the piano a little bit weirdly, and reading books again. And I don't know, I sleep on that kind of thing, especially near the end of the year. I start to realize what a bum I become. So yeah, now I'm gonna just capitalize on a lot, and I've been doing that so far in 2019, and hopefully.
So the opposite of what I've been doing.
Well, hey, don't get me wrong. I've been playing a lot of video games, but I play this one called PUBG, and it's a really fun game too. But
you got to get on the Fortnite, man. No, it's Fortnite or bust.
Well, see, I can't do that because my students have ruined the idea of enjoying Fortnite because it's all they really talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
PUBG's a man's game.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. We got
what else is a man's game? Football.
Yes, what we're here to talk about. Now, we got a pretty interesting episode for everybody today. We have our way too early 2019 running back rankings. We're going to talk about the conference championships coming up this weekend, AFC, NFC title games. But we're going to kick things off with a pretty fun 90s draft. So you're only allowed to draft 90s items. We're going to do 4 rounds. And Mark, you did a random pick here. Who got first go?
Well, the short and skinny of it is you did.
Ha! You hate to see it.
And I got second. Yes. And Landon third.
This is tough. There's a clear, to me, now I'm not going to say it out loud, but there's a clear first and second pick. So I'm pretty jealous that you guys got the first 2 picks, but I might be surprised. You never know. My pick might still land to me at the third, and as a snake style draft, I'm really looking forward to it. The 3 of us are all born in the 80s, so we grew up in the 90s, and we're a nostalgic generation. We love when Pokemon came back on your phone and you could catch it in the wild. That went crazy. All these superhero movies, it's all based on nostalgia, and they're taking all the ideas from the comic books that came out years and years ago. So hopefully you enjoyed the draft as much as we will have fun drafting.
I almost really want to be in your shoes, Landon, with the 3-4 back to back, because I I'm torn between two items, and I just feel like neither one are going to make it back to me at pick 6. 5, 6. So
Yeah, probably not. But you never know. It depends. We'll have to see where our nostalgia leaves us, where our priorities lie. As children, it's probably going to be toys and game related, but you never know. We could surprise ourselves. So
yeah, generationally, I mean, for the listeners out there who don't personally know each and every one of us, like, this was our childhood. We're talking here, like our elementary years. I was born in 89. Landon was born in 89. And you, Mac?
89.
89. Yeah, and there you have it. So these are like, we were all going through the same fads, the same trends, the same, like, Sears wish book, Christmas wish lists every year.
That thing was legit. That thing was so legit.
Yeah, well,
My mom would hand me this textbook and be like, "All right, pick out what you want for Christmas."
would it be too, like, meta if I just chose that instead of?
But it's not a gift. It's not like an item. It's just like
you could
Yeah,
have
I know.
just,
I
you can
get
have
the
just
book, and then Santa gets me the rest of the stuff I want.
Santa.
That's how it works.
Right. Before we kick off this absolutely pointless and ridiculous draft, we do want to remind the people that we are on Instagram at Saturday Morning Snap. We're also on Twitter at Landon_SMS, at MarkDraft_SMS, and at SMS_fantasy. All right, boys, without further ado, you want to kick this thing off?
Yeah, let's go.
All right,
Yes.
I got the first pick. I feel like I really want to go one way, but I just have to go. I have to pander just a little bit. Every single lunch hour when you were in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, and you looked out into that empty lunch kit and you saw a sandwich, and you maybe saw an apple, banana, a really nice healthy lunch, and you just saw that kid next to you with that Dunkaroo. You just had to do anything to get your hands on it. And that beautiful sprinkled icing and those ridiculously cookies were the best thing about the 90s. I loved Dunkaroos so much because my mom never bought them for me. And anytime I could get them off my friends who were like, yeah, I get them every day. I don't care. You can have them. Or, oh, my mom gave me 6. Those were the best days of the week, man. When you could get your hands on some Dunkaroos.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a shock to me at 101, but I'm impressed.
Well,
now, did you have a strategy towards your Dunkaroos? Did you just put a little icing on each one? Did you save a certain crackers till the end? What, like, or were you always random?
You never wanted to run out of icing. Ever.
No.
You
Never.
conserve, and then the last, like, 1 or 2 were just diabetes on a cookie.
Heaping with icing. Absolutely. Mark, what about you? Did you have a strategy on your Dunkaroos?
Dunkaroos, it was all about just like totally mising the icing into the last bite, and then there's the circular one that can really get into every crevice of that icing reservoir. Just cleaning it right out with that last cookie, and just
100%.
Don't
ruining your teeth for the day.
No, you had to stick the finger in there and get the remnants.
At the end, yeah, but that's exactly mine. I would a little bit of icing as we went, and exactly the circular one I would get is the most possible icing. That's 100%.
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one on that, but I'm glad you guys were on the same path as a child.
I was always one of those kids who went to school with a peanut butter and jam sandwich, and like, look where I ended up. You know, like those kids who went to school with 3, 4, maybe a whole box of Dunkaroos in their lunchbox. Like, those guys are millionaires now.
Yeah. All right, Mark, you're gonna go lunch oriented with like a pizza pocket or pizza pops, or are you going somewhere a different direction?
I was completely thinking differently. I wasn't going to go with the food at all in the first round. It doesn't sustain for long enough. It's not permanent enough.
Speak for yourself, Mark.
Yes, and this is going back to one of the most brilliant chapters of my life was a gift I received once, and I wouldn't ask for anything but this for my first pick. And that would be my Discman that I received
Classic.
in 1999.
Yes.
It was shockproof. It ran off AA batteries, and it fit in some of my jacket pockets. Certainly not all of them, but it made every bus ride. And, trying to bring one of those things like skiing. Times were harder back then, but much simpler as well. I'm going with the Discman.
I respect the Discman. That is right up your alley. You've always been a fan of music and hip hop, and the 90s hip hop is right up your alley. So that's a good pick. And I mean, in the 2000s, obviously the MP3 player and the what did Scotty used to have?
The mini disc?
The mini disc. Yeah. He loved those mini discs. So
yeah, special mention to Scotty. He did our snack draft earlier in the summertime, and he had a pretty good lineup of snacks, but I know he would be trying to get the mini disc player, even though that was like a 2001 item.
He'd be thrilled. He still listens to only 90s music.
Of course.
I think this draft would be right up his alley. So I'm going along around the same line as you, and I'm surprised this lasted to me at the 103. I'm gonna go the Game Boy, and I would include the Game Boy Color. If I had to pick, I'll pick the Game Boy Color because it was obviously better. But playing Pokemon, and actually that's kind of really the only game in Mario I would play on that.
What other games matter?
Yeah,
Paperboy was pretty dope, actually. You guys ever try Paperboy?
Yeah, never played Paperboy.
It was a good one.
But I think that's just a versatile. I think that started the mobile gaming trend. That's just it's an easy. There's still to this day Mario and these nostalgic games are still being produced and being very successful. Those side-scrolling games are a ton of fun. They're very simple, but they can be so challenging as well. So with my 201, my second round pick, I'm not going to go with another game system. I'm going to go with... We'll go with Sock'em Boppers.
Oh my, that is decent.
You're crazy, man.
I could never... My parents would never let me have them, but they're one of those things that I always wanted just to punch my friends in the face as hard as I can, and it wouldn't really hurt them, and it wouldn't hurt my hand. So
I can still hear the theme song too. Sock and boppers.
So that's my next pick there. I'm going Sock and Boppers.
Wow.
Marky?
Well, it's not too late, Landon. I want to punch you in the face every time I see you.
Well, we should have a Sock and Bopper duel one day.
Let's
the
get
money I would pay to see this.
All right. 202 for me. This didn't have a ton of significance for me, but damn it if it wasn't stylish, and damn it if it wouldn't still be. I'm going to go with the Oakley Minute sunglasses.
Wow.
Oh, sunglasses.
That's out of left field right there.
That is.
You couldn't have the 90s like attitude guy look without a pair of Oakley Minutes. And you know what? Times are tight. I'd even take Folkleys. The fake Oakleys that you would get at that one store uptown.
Or on a beach on your vacation or something from a nice Jamaican man.
That's right, yeah.
The Oakley Minutes. You're right. You're absolutely right. Those are complete 90s. Everyone had to have a nice pair of Oakley sunglasses when they were young.
Here we go.
They were the hotness.
Yep.
Wow, I can't believe this made it back to me. I, without a doubt, have to go Nintendo 64.
Yep.
Man, this was like my system. Actually, Landon and I were talking about this earlier today because he got the Nintendo Switch, and I was like, man, have you played the original you got what, Zelda? I was like, have you played the original Zelda on Nintendo 64, Ocarina of Time? He's like, no, I heard it was the OG, like the best. I'm like, you need to stop what you're doing and go get yourself that game. Like, track it down, play it. It's amazing. So man,
100%.
you look back to some of the titles, like GoldenEye was unbelievable. Super Smash Bros. Mario Party was a time. Mario Kart was sick. Super Mario 64 was like
Diddy Kong
the
Racing.
graduation. Hey? Diddy Kong Racing? Oh,
that game went hard.
Oh, Banjo-Kazooie, you remember that game?
So good.
Man. And like, we haven't even got into sports games, but yeah. N64 was legit. So I'm going to go with that. And I don't know if you can dispute that. Yeah,
that was right on top of my list, but I decided to go elsewhere. I didn't want to go video game with my first two picks.
No, you can't go Game Boy and N64. Like, then
Yeah.
you're just not balanced.
Got to be diverse.
Yeah. And I'm going to stick kind of with the game element here. Man, Pokemon cards? Give me that all day. Dunkaroos, N64, and Pokemon cards? Let's go.
That's a good pick. That was right on my list. Absolutely.
Nicely done. All right, so back to me, I guess, right? 203 or sorry, 302.
Yep.
I feel like Scott right now, just like
So-
on top of the world.
I've got my Discmen. I've got my Oakley sunglasses. Sounds like I need something to complete this look. And what better item than a pair of devil sticks?
Devil
sticks.
What?
Devil
I don't
sticks.
remember
You
that.
guys remember those things? They were like,
No.
oh my god, they're like, well, you held a stick in each hand, and they were kind of wrapped with like a foam hockey tape, and then there was another stick that you bounced, and kind of it was like 3 batons at once.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I see these. Yeah. I think I remember you having one of these back in the day.
I didn't, but I was always really jealous of my cousin Adam. So if Adam ever hears this, I wanted those, man.
You're
I
a
wanted
dick, Adam.
Your black and teal devil sticks. Those things were cool.
I honestly thought when you said, you're like, oh, I got the Folkleys, I've got the Discman, I'm going to go with the
Dunkaroos?
style. No, the style play when you wrap your sweater around your waist. Like, can you do that? Is that a legitimate pick?
I don't know.
I thought you were going to go fanny pack. I thought you were going fanny pack with that one.
That is just... You might as well just stay a virgin for the rest of your life.
So, it's come back to me. I've got some pretty good options. And I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't pick the Transformers toys. I had a ton of them. That was my go-to when I was younger. I used to have dozens of these things, and they got as I grew older, they got more intricate, and I would be able to do them without the instructions, and that was my claim to fame as a kid. So I used to have obviously the Optimus Prime, and the kind of like how Bumblebee. He used to be a cheetah. The cheetah guy was my favorite. He was a baller. So I'm going Transformers toys. I'm sure they still exist. They probably are pretty intricate nowadays, but I haven't played them since the 90s. And with my next pick, I'm gonna go with Power Wheels.
Power Wheels.
Ultimate. Look it up. Power Wheels. It is the electronic giant car that you could drive around as a kid. You see now they got like SUVs and Ford trucks, but I never had a Power Wheel. I had ones where you could move it with your legs, not with the pedal. But I'm gonna go Power Wheel with my next pick.
Wow, that's a okay. I mean, I don't know how you're gonna fit in that nowadays, but good for you.
It might be tough.
Oh man, this is tricky. The last one is it's tough because so many great ones have been taken, and like I've already got like 3 pretty solid things, but I got nothing to have fun on. That's my problem, right? I got nothing to play except I got devil sticks, but like we live in this like digital, it's like a hotbed for all these great games. So I would be remiss if I didn't select the Tamagotchi.
Oh, I knew
Drew
someone
was just talking about that.
I was thinking about
call.
picking it, but I just couldn't have 3 game systems, man. It'd be ridiculous. Tamagotchi.
Shout out to the arcade machine too, by the way. I just about picked an arcade machine. That's pretty dope.
Oh yeah.
Like a Street Fighter 2 machine would be unbelievable.
See, and there's so many things that I had tons of fun with in the 90s that weren't necessarily 90s items. Like, I don't know. We'll get into that after, I guess. But
So you've got the Discman. Is that the anti-skip Discman, or is that just the original?
it is, and it's actually it wasn't a Discman. It was a portable CD player because it wasn't made by Sony. Sony was a Discman, right?
Yeah, they were the disc. Well, the Walkman turned into. No,
mine was made by Panasonic. I had.
Oh yeah. They're all the same thing. Oh, I got a tough choice here. I mean, man, revolutionary invention. Saying goodbye to the VHS and opening up the DVD player was awesome. Like, you don't have to rewind the tape. You don't have to worry about going to Blockbuster and some idiot didn't rewind it. Now you got to rewind it, or you didn't get overcharged because you didn't rewind it. It's like, now pop it in. Oh, I can go to bloopers. I can skip chapters. Give me the DVD player, man.
Beautiful choice.
DVDs.
Well,
what a draft.
Here we go. So, Mac, why don't you go through your team?
I got Dunkaroos. I've got N64. I've got the DVD player. What was my
Hold on. That was 2000 DVD player.
97, man. 97.
Are you sure?
97. Why are you trying to hate on me? Just because I got a nice draft?
You should go VHS player is what you should do.
No.
All right, keep going.
I got Pokemon cards.
It's a nice lineup.
In the words of Scott of the North, bow down to the Emperor, you plebeians. I hope he listens to this episode. God.
Yeah. Scott's
all right, what do you got, boys? What do you boys got?
All right, so I ended up with the Discman, Oakley, or alternatively, Folkley sunglasses.
Yes.
It's the shape, really, that matters. Devil Sticks and Tamagotchi.
Unreal.
Nice. I got the Game Boy #1. I got Sock and Boppers, Transformers toys, and Power Wheels. Shout out to like Nerf guns and Super Soakers; those were dope.
Oh my god, yes. Shout out to Playmobil and Lego. I know those are very old corporations, but those two corporations kind of like made a lot of my formative years.
Man, I find way more like nostalgia in food. I don't know what it was, like Passion Flakies and Joe Louis. Probably because my mom did not buy them. Like, she suppressed me. Like, I just needed to fulfill those gaping holes in my cravings. But, I just go back to food. I can't help it.
You're all about that. Yeah. No one else drafted food, Mackie. You're the only one.
Yeah.
Dunkaroos, man. Shout out to Dunkaroos.
Playing video games.
I can snack while gaming and watching DVDs. Let's go.
Well, I'm gonna have my Discman and die of starvation while listening to "Enema of the State" by Blink-182.
Fantastic.
And have a backup copy of the Slim Shady LP.
Oh, that's what I was thinking of exactly when you said listening to the Discman as you're riding in the hills.
Yeah.
But did you have the original Discman or whatever the Panasonic one was called before they came out with the anti-skip technology? And you would be like walking more than 1 mile per hour, and it would just stop playing, and then you'd have to stop, and then it would start playing again. And
I did, yeah. My
nightmare.
my second CD player had the anti-skip, but first one didn't have that luxury.
No, you couldn't even walk from like your car to your house without it like losing track. All right,
Beautiful.
boys, let's leave this in the past. That was great. That was fun. Let's go on to our way too early top 10 rankings for running backs in 2019. Now, we say way too early because things are going to change from between now and September. But at this moment in time right now, just coming off the 2018 season, you got guys fresh in your mind. You know what certain systems look like. Maybe some head coaching changes have skewed or given you a little bit of insight of how things might be next year. Let's go through picks 1 through 10, as a group here. And we'll see kind of how our lists stack up. Just out of reference, we're going to talk about very briefly the 2018 finishes in a half point per reception league, weeks 1 through 16, because I feel like it's important to omit week 17 because we don't play, and we encourage you guys not to play your championships in week 17. It should really be a null and void week. Just because you got guys sitting on certain teams. And so if you had a Todd Gurley that got you to the fantasy championships and then he's out week 17, that's a real detriment to your team's success. And you don't want to be pulling guys off the waiver wire to win you a championship. So for this exercise, weeks 1 through 16 are going to be what we use to measure. And it goes down the list as Gurley at 1, McCaffrey 2, Barkley 3, Kamara 4, Elliott 5, Melvin Gordon at 6, only playing 11 games. James Conner only playing 12. James White full schedule. Kareem Hunt only playing 11. And then David Johnson at number 10. Just to give you an idea, David Johnson 211.4 points at number 10. Todd Gurley 342.6 in the number 1 spot. Christian McCaffrey in number 2, not too far behind, about 15 points back. So interesting to see those finishes when you take out week 17 and you make it a half-point league. Christian McCaffrey really does jump up the board. You guys interested to see him there at 2, or did you have him a little bit further down just in your mind?
I knew he was good, and I think he won a lot of people championships. It's so interesting that Gurley only played 14 games and still finishes number 1, and McCaffrey and Barkley are a little bit. And Kamara, Zeke, all these guys are quite a bit behind him despite playing all 16 games. Now, I know there are some injuries and what have you, but for the most part, those guys played every game. So it's Gurley's just well above the rest. And if their team somehow drops more games next year and they need to compete, like Gurley would like not run into the end zone. He would kind of like give fantasy owners the middle finger by like taking a knee right before the end zone. He could have set the touchdown record this year, but he was just it was a weird year. But
it's funny, and Gurley takes less of a front seat on his offense than McCaffrey, Barkley, and Kamara and Elliott all do on theirs. Right. There's so many weapons around Gurley, yet he still finishes with such astonishing numbers. It's just, when you consider like the 14 games played, along with that, it is, it's an eye opener.
And we will go closer to the season next year. We're going to go into points per game as well, because there's a lot of players, wide receivers, running backs that really jumped up due to late season success. But if the player didn't perform early on in the first, say, 6 weeks, you weren't going to get into the playoffs anyways. These guys need to perform all year long. So maybe we'll get into some consistency, look into guys a little more deeper, and just kind of really dive into some of these positions, running back, wide receiver, all that, closer throughout the offseason, maybe closer to next season as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So with Todd Gurley being the number one finisher, playing one less game than everybody else below him, is he the clear-cut number one in 2019? Is that safe to say, or do you think things could change in the running back landscape?
To me, he is. Still, I know he's got a knee injury right now in the playoffs, and CJ Anderson's getting a ton of work and looking really good.
He looks really good.
And it just goes to show that, I mean, running back, as much as we love all these names up top, to a point it really doesn't matter. If they're in a good scheme, if they get the ball, if they get the opportunity, as a general rule, running back doesn't matter. If James Conner takes the work from Lev Bell, he is a top 10 running back, hands down. Now, there's the exception, the Saquon Barkleys of the world, Alvin Kamara last year with that yards per carry. Those guys really they make a lot of their own, despite maybe Barkley having a bad offensive line and Kamara being a late round rookie pick. He made a lot of people miss. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, if you get the opportunity and you're a big, giant, strong runner in the NFL, you can have decent hands to catch the ball. Obviously, in point per reception leagues or half point leagues, that makes a big difference. You're going to have production.
Well, that's like imagine someone who's at the bottom of this top 10 finisher list. Like if David Johnson had Gurley's offensive line to work with, these numbers would be
and the scheme
completely different.
They would run him. They ran him up the middle with a bad offensive line and a backup center. Yeah, and he wasn't used properly at all.
That's totally right.
You're 100%, Mark. If David Johnson, he's by far. He's very, very talented. We'll just say we've seen that through his the start of his career. So you're 100% right. Marky and Mac, who do you guys have number one on your list?
I've got Saquon Barkley.
I've got Ezekiel Elliott.
So give us the.
Go ahead.
Give us the case for these guys. We're gonna not maybe go through every single one of our picks. We're just gonna go through guys that stand out. But I want to see why Zeke is number one on your list, and then go to Mac why Barkley deserves the number one, and that would be the 101. Generally, you're gonna take Barkley and Zeke at the 101 in your fantasy drafts next year.
Right.
I think with Zeke, it's just a really great work ethic on a Cowboys team that I think should have gone further than they did, and didn't have the game of the season last week in the playoffs. But I do have lots of hope for him going into next year, and a lot of problems did kind of stem from some offensive line injuries at the start of the season, but as I've mentioned in past episodes, things really came together for the Cowboys offense later on in the season. And Zeke does put in a ton of work in the offseason. He's going to come back ferocious with something to prove for that playoff loss.
Yeah,
and Mac?
Yeah, there's lots for me that good for Ezekiel Elliott. Actually, from a week ago when we were sort of thinking about this, I've moved him up since. But he's still at 4 for me. The guy that is number one for me next year ahead of Gurley is Saquon Barkley. And I just think first year in the league, what he accomplished was incredible. 261 rush attempts, 1,307 yards, 11 touchdowns. And then he gave you another 91 receptions and 4 on the ground. So 15 total touchdowns, an absolute machine at times. In the absence of Odell Beckham Jr., was the offense for the Giants. And I just think if the guy can learn the game a little bit more, if he can get a little bit more of a complete competitive team behind him, there's no doubt that he could continue to take a step forward. I think he can be in conversation with Gurley. He might even outscore Gurley next year. So I just think opportunity is sky's the limit for this guy. He's clearly one of the most athletically gifted players to touch the ball in the run game, in the pass game, and if he stays healthy, I think he could for sure supplant Gurley at the number one spot.
Yeah, it's quite possible. I love the talent of Barkley and the way they use him in the passing game, but Some numbers we'll talk about later. It shows the offensive line for the Giants still really isn't there, despite the crazy amount of talent that Barkley has. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna skip down to my number 4 spot because I've got Zeke and Barkley right after. I'm going Christian McCaffrey, and we're in a half-point league. I was just astonished with the work that he got this year. And mostly through the passing game. He was the offense. Cam Newton's arm was not looking good. He won people championships this year, and I want McCaffrey on my team next year. Mm-hmm. And I'm just a big fan. I think he can run through the tackles. They had C.J. Anderson on the team early this season, and they didn't need him because McCaffrey was that guy. So McCaffrey's next on my list.
I have him in the same spot as you there too. Number 4. Like you said, you can't really say enough about him. He was the driving force behind that offense and somehow just managed to do everything and more as the season progressed. And he's just, his receptions and yards after catch alone are just it's a really impressive element of his game. And it fits really well with that Panthers offense too.
Mm-hmm. Mac, where do you differentiate from us with these top few picks?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece for me is Melvin Gordon at 3. So I'm Barkley, Gurley, Gordon, and then I've got Elliott, who I already mentioned, at 4. So I just look at Melvin Gordon. He finished as the number 6 running back this year, and he only played 11 games. So that's 4 less than the rest of the guys played in a 15 game fantasy season minus the 1 bye week. So I just look, he's top 6. He only played 11 games. He's missing 4. That's a quarter of his fantasy season. If you were to extrapolate his numbers out, if you just take another 25% and add it to, take the good with the bad, I mean, you're looking at bumping Melvin Gordon up from 242 fantasy points. You're looking to bump him up into the high 2s, low 3s. So he's in conversation with Elliott, Kamara in terms of production. So I just think with that team, that team that they've built in Los Angeles isn't going anywhere. Guys are only gonna get better. That defense is good. I thought they'd play a lot better in the playoffs, but if the team continues to get better and certainly competitive, I think Melvin Gordon in a full year of health, and I know I said that with Barkley too, but Gordon struggled with some injuries this year, missed a big chunk of weeks.
He really hurt you in the coming to the playoffs and end of the season. He really hurt a lot of teams without had him on his team.
Yeah,
the team.
He hurt you in the playoffs. He didn't. I played Melvin Gordon in the championship game. He gave you 41 yards and a score, so he didn't crap your team. But it's not the Melvin Gordon you signed up for and played the whole year. But nonetheless, I think in a completely healthy year, in a good system, I think Melvin Gordon could easily be top 3.
How many years do you think Phillip Rivers has left on his career?
I don't know. He's a really good pocket passer. That team could do a better job protecting him. I mean, he got beat up last week against the Patriots. 2 weeks ago against the Patriots. So, I don't know.
He's 37 years old, so he probably still might have 2 or 3 years left.
Yeah,
and that's fair for a running back. Like the average length of a running back in the league is, I think it's only 3 years. So, that sounds fair, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The Chargers are going to be an interesting team to talk about between now and the start of next season. With that, their performance this year was so good, and I'm just wondering if they will uphold that or what's going to change and what's going to stay the same. It's going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, Mike Williams came out to be a pretty good option. Keenan Allen, he had games where he really showed out, but I think he could be a top 10 option. He should be, as long as Rivers keeps hucking the ball. But you're right, Mark.
Yeah.
Moving
Yeah,
on.
so next-
Let's talk about the next guy. We all love him.
Yeah, I've got Alvin Kamara next on my list, and that does have to do with what Mark Ingram does and where he goes. I think even if he stays in New Orleans, I think Kamara is a safe bet. There's enough points to go around. I'm hoping my pick is for that New Orleans to actually win the Super Bowl. I'd be thrilled with Drew Brees doing that and these guys and that team as a whole. Anyone but the Patriots is really my go-to there. But he showed out that he can still maintain a pretty high yards per attempt this year. He gets a lot of passing down work. I think Kamara is an absolute lock in the top 5, top 6 spots here.
Yeah. Marky, what are your thoughts on Kamara?
I got him at 6, but I just think that offense is so successful when Ingram is rolling. It does seem like they rely on him a certain amount too. And it just, when the team is happy with a player, it seems more and more likely that he's going to be there in subsequent years. So to me, I think the Kamara Ingram system works, and for that reason, it's not enough for Kamara to move as high up as, let's say, Melvin Gordon or Christian McCaffrey, who are, huge shareholders in their offenses. So I got him lower than you guys at 6 instead of 5. Not much lower.
Yeah, it's still fair. And we're just going through broad strokes here right now. We'll go more in-depth closer to the season next year and really dig down deep to why we might have these guys. We'll do projections. But right now, we're just giving you our way too early broad strokes and what we think is going to happen. Now, you guys both have a running back that really broke out this year and probably cost Le'Veon Bell a little bit of money. Why do you guys have James Conner in the top 12? Oh, I guess it's number 7. So Mac, we'll go with you.
So what? I don't get to talk about Alvin Kamara?
Well, do you have anything else to say about Kamara?
No, I just think it's interesting when we talk about Kamara in the absence of Ingram, and we don't talk about the first 4 games of the season where he was just unbelievable. I think about if you extrapolate the data, and I don't like to use this as my argument, but the numbers, if this were to keep up for the whole season, it's unbelievable, man. Like, we're talking. I'm just doing some quick addition here. Okay, we're talking, if you were to take his first 4 games without Mark Ingram, all right? Take Mark Ingram out of the equation, because we were like, oh, I wonder if Alvin Kamara can do this by himself without that complement. We're looking at 1,100 yards on 240 carries and 20 rushing touchdowns. And then we're looking at 188 targets. Where's my receiving number? Sorry. 188 targets for 110 receptions, 1,344 yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. That's 24 total touchdowns, almost 2,500 yards.
Okay.
That is some ridiculousness. And I'm not going to say, that is definitely not something that can be sustained. But when you look at what he did over the first 4 games of the season without Mark Ingram, he was an absolute machine.
Yeah.
So, to say that he could do that for a full season is ludicrous, but it puts it into perspective how involved he could be in both rushing and receiving and how good he is. I mean, if you watch the playoff games last week, he said, oh, I feel like I'm the best receiver on the field, regardless of who's out there. So he considers himself not only an elite runner, but an elite pass catcher too. So it's good to see the vote of confidence. I don't agree with him, but he's certainly not a poor receiver by any means. So just interesting. If Mark Ingram's not in town, I'd probably move Alvin Kamara way, way up.
Michael Thomas is an absolute baller.
Oh my God.
His catchable target rate is 95.2%.
Well, at one point in the year, he had like 80 100%. Receptions and only dropped like 2 balls or something.
Yeah. The next, Alshon Jeffrey, unfortunate that he had that big drop, but he was at 89.1%. He was sure-handed all year long. And then the next major guy that's probably in top of the league is Adam Thielen with 84.5% of catchable target rate leader. So, and through the first 3 seasons, Michael Thomas also is leading the NFL historically in rushing or in receiving yards through the first 3 seasons, and it's pretty amazing what that guy's doing. Hopefully, it's the Saints, despite Drew Brees getting older, they're still looking good long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big time.
At 6, I've got Christian McCaffrey. And
do you have anything new to say about McCaffrey, or did we kind of cover it?
No, I was really pleased with McCaffrey this year. I certainly didn't want to take him in a couple leagues. I felt like I was forced into it, just the position that I took him. I just had no other choice, and I was extremely satisfied with what he gave me, and I think you would be pleased as well. Like we said, finished the number 2 half point running back. I don't know what full point looks like, but I'm sure he would be way up there as well. So yeah, Christian McCaffrey, you wish that you could put him higher, but I just don't see him doing this again next year, especially with the reports that Cam Newton could be out the whole next season. If his next shoulder surgery doesn't go to plan, Cam Newton could be out. So that's a lot to put on McCaffrey. I don't know if he can do it.
So you might be tempering expectations depending on what the news on Cam Newton is then.
Yeah, a little bit. It scares me off, but I mean, it does mean more opportunity, but it also means that they are less of a threat as an offense and easier to stack the box on Christian McCaffrey if there's no one to throw the ball. So
yeah. So as a general rule of thumb, whoever's starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers is a minimum top 8 running back. Would you agree with that?
We've seen it for the last 6-7 years. So yes.
Bell's been number 101. It's amazing to think that Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, the arguable first overall picks in the past 4 years, I would say,
at both positions,
will no longer be on, or might very well be off the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's pretty amazing. So
Bell's not coming back, and Art Rooney's already said he's not looking forward to having Antonio Brown back. He's trying to ship him out.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, but that will probably move Juju Smith-Schuster way up the ranks in wide receivers. But let's talk about James Conner. Why do you have him at the 8th spot, or where is it here?
7
spot. How come you got Conner at the 7th spot?
Mark, you take this one away, pal.
Well, with 12 games played this year, I think he was someone who got a ton of action. Obviously, having to fill Le'Veon Bell's shoes, they rely on that running game. So they relied on James Conner, and he did end up getting a bit hurt. But while he was in game, he was amazing to watch. He ran like a horse, and he was a great story too, right? Like we're just as happy talking about like the narrative of James Conner as we were talking about his statistics. Mm-hmm. He filled a role, and then he opened it up for so much passing action too, and that's what a good firm running game does. Is there a threat when they have the ball, but then a play action pass opens it up for Brown and Smith-Schuster. Like it was a really calculated scheme with James Conner on the field. Mm-hmm. But then there is the thought of him getting injured again, so it's hard to say. Like if that were to happen, he may not uphold the year he had this year, or may not play the full season. Who knows?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he didn't play weeks 14, 15, 16. So you were looking at James Conner the whole year, just thinking, okay, like, is this the last week I get James Conner? Oh, no, we get one more. Oh, it's going to be one more. Oh, week 10 passed. I get this guy to the playoffs. And that's the moment after week 10, Le'Veon Bell didn't report. You really turned the corner as a James Conner owner. You're like, this is it, man. This is the waiver wire piece, or the late round piece I needed to draft in order to to win a fantasy championship. And then he disappears 14, 15, 16 because of injury. Yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
he was definitely a huge piece of why you made it to the playoffs. Scored in every single game except for 4. So that's just ridiculous. I mean, the guy played how many total games? 13 total games and scored 12 touchdowns. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I'm really hopeful for him next year. I think he's going to climb draft boards like crazy. I don't think he'll be top 12 first round, but he'll certainly be second round.
And that's a value at the second round. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he'll be back at the first. It's hard to say, though.
Yeah.
So
I just for me the talent is there, but I'm with you, Landon. It's James Conner's not the most talented guy I've ever seen run the ball, but that system just produces fantasy running backs, and James Conner's no exception to that system.
absolutely right. And I've got the guy who he replaced, Le'Veon Bell, at that spot. We're not sure where he ends up yet, and this might change your opinion. It might change my opinion on where he lands if he's in the league. Who knows? Pittsburgh might sign him to a franchise tag, and Lev Bell sits out again. Who the heck knows? Because we all thought Lev Bell was going to stay or play this year, but he held out all year long. So it'll be interesting to see where he lands. I originally thought he might go to the Indianapolis Colts, but it seems like Marlon Mack is a pretty great fit in that system. I could see him go to the Jets. It'd be pretty awesome if Bell and Brown went to the Jets. That team would look a little bit differently now on offense if both guys went to the Jets. So the New York Jets want a back that would rival Barkley, so I think they're going to throw all the money at him, despite the fact that all these secondary, tertiary, all these running backs are having success in offenses that just have a good scheme, like C.J. Anderson, like Connor did. Who else like just shined as a backup in an offense?
Eckler did not too bad as a backup.
Eckler didn't do too bad, yeah.
Gus Edwards was pretty great.
Yep. So a lot of these guys this really just shine based on the scheme and the offense. Oh, Damian Williams, that's who I was thinking of.
Oh, for Kansas City, yes.
With Kareem Hunt getting out of the league and Damian Williams just showing up in the system, right?
Tevin Coleman too.
Yes.
Another rep.
Yeah, doing fairly good in that, and that's we'll talk about that Atlanta Falcons team later on. But yeah, absolutely. So
we talked to a little bit about maybe potential landing spots for Le'Veon Bell next year, and one that came up that was interesting was the Houston Texans.
That would be juicy.
Just a team with a lot of youth, a lot of talent, a lot of fire, and you pair maybe one of the best running back talents. Maybe not systems in New Orleans or in Houston, but one of the best talents with a guy like Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, and then you've got a really good defensive front, J.J. Watt and Clowney. Man, like that team could go next level if they get Le'Veon Bell in that run game.
If Houston decides to sign Lev Bell, where would you two have him ranked? Would he be top 5?
No. I think
Mark.
I'd be
think he
more
would probably
tempted
be
to
in
move
like
him
a
up.
7th, 6th or 7th spot.
Yeah, I look where you have him landed, and I think I would have to probably bump Bell up past Mixon and Connor, but that would probably be it for me. I can't put him higher than McCaffrey or Kamara. There's no way.
Yeah, I just think he would be a value then at our spot because he has the potential, like we've seen, of being the number 1 overall guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not wearing black and yellow, though.
This is true.
Sometimes the unknown is tough.
Yeah.
So I've got at the 8th spot, I've got Joe Mixon. So do you, Landon.
Yeah, me too. And so Mixon was a soft spot this offseason. You did not like Mixon at all. So
Nope.
I'll give you the reasons why you like him inside your top 12 this year.
No, openly against Joe Mixon. Same with Derrick Henry. The biggest thing I had against Joe Mixon, he wasn't efficient. He didn't look overly productive with the ball when he had it. There was never that moment where it's like, oh my, wow, look at that. This year, there was lots of wow moments. When we talk about watching somebody play football and you kind of get that oh moment, like they pass the eye test, they look differently. That's how I felt about Joe Mixon in a little bit of the preseason and then in weeks 1 and 2. And I ended up making a trade for Joe Mixon. Glad that I did. The guy really struggled in his rookie year, averaging about 3.5 a carry. This year, he's up near 5. So when you can improve by 1.5 yards a carry, that either says that you're becoming a more experienced runner, maybe you're becoming a little bit more patient, or you're seeing the holes a little bit differently, or maybe the scheme that you're running in has improved. But nonetheless, Joe Mixon, huge boost in year 2. So, we talk about sophomore slump, but he was the exact opposite. So, Joe Mixon, really, really solid improvement, and I wish I could have him higher, but I'm certainly willing to put Joe Mixon on my team going into year 3. I don't know how you feel, Lando, but that's how I feel about him.
Yeah, absolutely. The narrative last year was that the Bengals had to get better last year. And what we saw that through everywhere. Tyler Boyd had a breakout season. AJ Green, when he was healthy, he played pretty well. And I think they're going to continue to do that. I think their offense looks pretty good. And yeah, I'm a fan of the Bengals, and it's just, I think that team always just gets disrespected kind of, and that's why these guys are values. Mm. So yeah, Mixon's right up there. I think he has another chance to repeat.
Mark, you've got David Johnson at your 8 spot. Any reason why he's not higher?
Well, I'm surprised. Like, he's even in the top 10 this year. He was misused, but I think now they're going to give their heads a shake and hopefully capitalize on what's a really talented player. He just didn't that Arizona team was a nightmare this year, especially, down to the play calling. So if David Johnson can be used and if he's healthy for all 16, then he can be, he should totally be right up there with these guys. But I got him at the 8th spot. Maybe I trust in someone like him a little more than Mixon. And that's not from this year's success, but from his 2 years ago and 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So to finish off these guys, we'll go with one surprise pick for Marky here at his number 12 spot. But then I want to know what 2018 rookies, not named Saquon, have really the best chance for you to get into the top 12. Where these sophomore rookies, which ones can take a big step forward this year and hit it kind of like what Mixon did this year. So, Mac, I'll start with you. Who's your rookie this year that impressed?
Yeah, so to finish out my top 10, I've got Le'Veon Bell as number 9. I'd be willing to move him up if his landing spot was, desirable. But at the number 10 spot, I've kind of flip-flopped back and forth between David Johnson. I've had Leonard Fournette here, and which we'll talk about a little bit after J.J. Zachariason sort of released this data about running backs. Just some things that I encountered about Kerryon Johnson really, really intrigued me. So he would be the one that I would say as a year 2 player could make the biggest leap into the top 10. You say top 12, I say probably top 10, Kerryon Johnson, if given the work that we think he is capable of and that the Lions sort of started to give him near the end of the season. I think Kerryon could definitely be a top 10 play.
And so, Mark, I'm surprised with your number 12 pick, and I want you to verify or give us some reasons behind that. But then I want to tell you about a rookie that maybe didn't get a chance to play much this year that could be in the top 12.
Yeah, my 10th spot, Lando, 10th. of
Oh,
10
not 12.
is
10.
Chris Carson from the Seahawks. He really just pounded the ball at the end of the season there. It was the most efficient running team in the league. And Chris Carson, he really showed a lot of promise. Throughout the month of December, he had something like 5 TDs and I want to say like 700 yards or something. Like it was great numbers. So yeah, Carson, I don't see him on any of your list, but I do love that team, and they got a really strong offensive line, and they always seem to manage with the tools that they have. But to answer your question about a rookie not named Saquon, who's got the best chance next year, and this is more hopeful, like for me, I don't care about what you guys want, but I want Darius Geis from the Washington Redskins to prevail. I want him to be healthy, and I want him to come back from this surgery to have a massive year. I like the Redskins, but they are a mess.
I love Darius Geis.
Tire fire.
Yeah.
I love Geis. I would have had him probably right in my top 10, top 12 last year going into it. I really liked, I mean, to look what Adrian Peterson did last year, breaking 1,000 yards, to what Geis could have done with the talent that he is, it would have been so juicy. But yeah, fingers crossed for me too. I'm a big Geis fan. I'd like to get him for a value in drafts next year. So hopefully that's the case. Mm-hmm. And I think, Mac, you brought up a good rookie this year. Undrafted rookie, Philip Lindsay. He always has a chance to be in the top 10 week to week, top 5 week to week. He's got extreme explosive talent. He really showed out last year with and Royce Freeman was one of my guys, and he just left him in the dust. So Philip Lindsay could easily be in the top 10, top 12 for sure as a sophomore guy. So yeah, that's probably my guy who could make that jump.
Yeah. I just want to talk briefly before we sort of pivot off to the conference championship games. Just the bulk of data. I tweeted this out. I think I retweeted this, a couple days ago. Or maybe it was a week ago. I can't remember. But there's a bulk of data that was released on Twitter about running backs and what percentage of their carries were allocated to 10-yard gains, 20-yard gains, loss of yardage, and then in that 0 to 2 like marginal gain category. And some of the results, some of the data was quite staggering. And so I've just sort of pulled a couple guys. It's a lot to sift through, but I kind of pulled out a couple guys that really caught my eye in a good way that I didn't expect, and in a very poor way for guys I thought could be, a lot better. So it gives me a little bit more insight about maybe who performs in what way and what part of their games they struggle with. But nonetheless, I want to go through a couple of the guys that caught my eye on the good side. And the number one was Gus Edwards from the Baltimore Ravens. Edwards kind of got his chance midway through the season. And when you look at him, probably one of the safest runners as a starter, only lost yardage 7.3% of his carries. And in his 0 to 2 yard gain, he's 32% of his carries. So 7.3 in the loss category was the very minimum. And these are running backs with 100-plus carries. The only person that qualified for this but wasn't on the list was Carlos Hyde because he switched teams. And if you play in two different systems, the accuracy of the data is not there. So Gus Edwards, the best in terms of lost yardage. He was the least penalized runner. And then in the 0 to 2 yard gain category, he was second best. And then when you compare his stats in the 10-plus and the 20-plus carries, 12.4% of the time he was gaining at least 10 yards on a carry, and then 2.9% of the time he was 20 yards or better. So, that's middle of the pack, but he's just a super, super safe runner, and I never really expected that from him.
That's an interesting stat line.
Yeah.
There's some very interesting players on this list, the players who rush for 20 plus yards, it's surprising that Alvin Kamara is one of the lowest at 0.52, whereas a guy like Nick Chubb is at 5.73, which is super high.
For 20 plus yards on a carry. Yeah, that's really, really high.
Yeah, for sure. It's very, very interesting. We're gonna revisit this list going forward, and we're kind of here to help you kind of navigate this list because there's a lot of numbers that might not mean a lot to everyone. So, again, this off season, we'll probably look at this list and dive into a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is a very interesting list.
Yeah, and this was the list. This was the piece of data that really kind of made me think about Kerryon Johnson a little bit differently. I mean, the guy only started 7 games, still amassed almost 700 yards rushing, about 260 yards receiving. So I just think, the guy only got 7 starts, yet you look at him and 20% of his carries are for, an average of 15 yards or more. And then very similarly built in terms of their production was Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. So Edwards, Kerryon Johnson, Aaron Jones were 3 running backs that really stood out as to maybe guys that could make a tier jump in 2019 if the opportunity is there, because they're clearly doing something right when they get the ball in their hands.
And in recent history, I mean, the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers don't really have great running games. So for these guys to show out,
running teams either.
Yeah, so for them to be that efficient, especially the Lions in general, they finally have a good runner. It's too bad Kerryon went down. I've got him stashed in the league, and I'm hoping he is that top 10 guy. But yeah, I hope they keep giving him the ball. Hope he gets healthy. That kind of he's a great talent.
On the bad side of the chart, it's color coded, this chart, so you can kind of pick out the red pieces. But Leonard Fournette, Saquon Barkley, and LaShawn McCoy all sort of share data in a couple spots. Loss of yards rate were all over 20%, and 0 to 2 yard gain rate they were all around 50%. 51, 52.5, and 49.7. So to say that these guys would only gain between 0 and 2 yards, 50% of their carries, I mean, you don't expect stats like that for a guy like Saquon Barkley. 52.5%, the absolute most in that category. But then you flip over and you say, oh, he's the absolute best in 20-plus yard carries at 6.1%. And, very average at 12% in 10-yard carries. So it's interesting to see where that balance is, but I did not expect to see him so high in that 0 to 2 yard gain rate. Just, I thought he was a little bit better than that. But it just goes to show you how the run game is so inefficient in the NFL. Like you can have a guy like Saquon Barkley who just seems untouchable and he seems so efficient, but his numbers are skewed because he's so good in breaking off really long plays, from time to time. But really, a majority of his time, he's just, getting minimal gains. So,
Mark, is there anything on this list to you that stands out? Any guys you want to talk about, or maybe you'll start to look into a little bit more later through this offseason?
I don't know. I think it's just a matter of time, I guess. We've got to we deal with keeper leagues and fantasy leagues too, and dynasty leagues too. Sorry, it's going to be I guess there's certain players that I'm going to watch out for, and maybe someone like Kerryon is a tempting pickup for someone like me. I struggle at the running back position. There's guys that someone might easily let go on this list, where you can weigh your current guys against them with this data, and it's, I don't know, maybe just knowing it is an advantage, right?
Mm-hmm. No, it's good. Yeah, we'll have to revisit. There's a ton to talk about, but those are just a couple guys that stood out for me, and I thought, while we were talking about running backs, we might as well just sort of parlay some of that data in there. But I think it's time that we could close this thing out, talk about some of the conference championship matchups, what side of the ball that we are going to put our chips, and talk about potential Super Bowl matchups. So let's start with the NFC Championship game between the Los Angeles Rams and the New Orleans Saints. It's a 56.5 over-under. I think that is extremely low if you are a betting man. It is a dome game, and that usually presents lots of scoring opportunities. New Orleans at home, 3.5-point favorites. You boys going Saints or Rams in this one?
I'm going Saints. I picked them to win the Super Bowl. It's going to be a tough matchup. The LA Rams are high-powered offenses. It's a tough defense, really good defensive line with the Rams. It's going to be a really fun game to watch. My heart says Saints. My brain, I wouldn't bet on the Saints personally, just because I know how tough the Rams are. But my heart says Saints. Hopefully that leads me in the correct direction.
I'm also saying Saints. I look back towards the Week 9 matchup between these two teams where New Orleans won 45-35, if my memory serves me correct. I'm just really hoping for a fun, exciting game in both conferences, but I do think New Orleans is the better team, the more complete team. The Rams have been great. Maybe if Cooper Kupp was playing in this game, I would think a little bit differently, but no, I just think that the Saints have a better defense altogether. Their secondary is a little bit better, and Drew Brees has looked unstoppable at times with Michael Thomas. So I'm going Saints.
I hate to throw a stick in your little plan here, guys, but I'm going Rams.
Of course.
Of course I am. I think the Rams really proved like a second dimension to an already dominant run game. But with CJ Anderson and Todd Gurley, I think that's going to be really tough to defend. And I don't know. I'm just waiting for the secondary to get torched on some play actions from Jared Goff, and they've got some formidable receivers as well. So I don't know. While it is a game at New Orleans, I think I think destiny is going to lead to another 100-point slugfest in the Super Bowl between the Rams and the Chiefs. That being said, I think the Chiefs are going to beat the Patriots.
I so badly hope that the Chiefs win. I would love to see the Chiefs play the Chargers, but it was not meant to be. I'm picking and hoping that the Chiefs win this matchup.
Yeah. What about you, Mac?
It is a stop the Patriots at all costs. No, I really do think that Kansas City is the better team, but one thing in this matchup that serves well for the Kansas City Chiefs is that the Patriots in the playoffs on the road have not had the same success that they've had at home or in the Super Bowl on neutral turf. So in the Brady-Belichick era, there have been 38 playoff games, which is unbelievable. 30 of those games have been played on either their home soil or opposing soil. So 8 of those games have been Super Bowl games. 7 games on the road, not played in Foxborough. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick's record is 3-4 on the road in the playoffs. So, this is really the only part of the Brady-Belichick era that hasn't found the same level of success that they have in every other aspect of the playoffs. So, not to say that that's going to be a defining factor, but there's statistical proof that they are not the same team on the road that they are at home. And, I think that could play a factor. The weather's supposed to be cold. What'd you say, Landon? -8?
-8 Celsius.
Yeah, Celsius. For everyone listening in America, that's about what? I get the conversion gets weird once you get under 0, but it's cold.
I think that's 14, 15 below. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it is lower than 8.
17 degrees.
17 degrees Fahrenheit?
Yeah.
Yeah, they meet at what, minus 40? Something like that.
I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, I sincerely hope that this game is just like the meeting they had in the regular season, just with the Patriots maybe losing 43-40 this time, not winning. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
All right, guys. Well, that'll do it.
You hear me?
Well,
I can hear you now.
We got you.
My headphones popped out.
Anyways,
yeah,
well, it's nice to be back.
All right,
talking.
boys. Well,
talking
that's
some
gonna
football.
wrap it up for us today. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. I really like the '90s draft. I thought that was hilarious. Good little bit of fun. Maybe a little bit longer of a podcast than normal, but we haven't done this for a while, so we might as well go big, right?
That's some catching up to do.
Get back in it with you guys.
Heck yeah.
Okay,
I hope
I have
that
one
we can have another draft about some things that have nothing to do with football, but just will give us bragging rights for having better taste than each other.
Well, after this week, we're going to have a week off with the Pro Bowl happening and a little bit of a break before the Super Bowl, so that'll give us an opportunity. We do want to mention that there will be an episode next week and an episode leading into the Super Bowl, and then after that, we're going to probably go to a bi-weekly schedule just because the NFL season really does slow down. And we'll give Landon enough time that he needs to go scout some rookies. We might talk some Kyler Murray. An interesting situation there. So, yeah.
Lots of. I've already gotten into.
You're damn right. And we'll see you guys next Saturday with lots to talk about with the conference championship. Have a good week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Yeah. See you guys.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at SMS_fantasy. Support this independent podcast at patreon.com/SaturdayMorningSnap.